is ecclesia. That everything that St. Paul is doing is calling people into what you call neighborliness in terms of how we live with one another, with our differences not going away, but our differences that are real, but not real as the world makes them. So it is counter to the world of certainty. That is certain about the differences. And so there's for Paul, it's calling people into community. That is ecclesia. That is Sabbath.
That had not occurred to me, but I like that, and I'll think about it some more. Thank you for that.
We'll be in touch.
Okay, good. I'll have my people contact your people.
He does that.
So, Dr. Breuggemann, the first thing I want to say is when you got up and you said you were going to say some things that were going to possibly upset us or...
No, I didn't say that.
That we might not want to hear.
What I meant was they might not be connected with where you're at.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking to myself when you said that, like, oh, these poor people, they have no idea what they're in for. I didn't know you meant me. So, so thank you, I guess, for that. You talked a lot about how we understand getting away from certitude. And it made me realize I think a lot of my spiritual life has been a real deep striving for certitude and maybe wrestling and scraping and hoping that maybe if I just do this right and even do this priest thing right, there will be a little bit of certitude. So this is a little bit frustrating. But at the same time, you talked about, you mentioned towards the end the idea that this honesty and this ability to recognize fidelity and recognize how we're made in God's image comes only in a sense of security, or that we need to have some sense of safety, whether it be in the community or wherever we find that safety. And that resonates with me and it makes sense. At the same time, I think I'm trying to understand how you differentiate safety or security from certitude. And I especially because we all get up every Sunday or almost every Sunday and preach a gospel about a God who has already accomplished work in Jesus and shown himself to be there for us and to be faithful to us, and whose means, according to the gospel, his means for us are reconciliation and an end at rest with him. So how do we understand?
Well, let me respond about my use of the word safety. I was talking about a church conversation in which it's safe enough to be honest. That means I trust the pastor and the other people in the group that they're not going to hurt me for what I say and they're not going to betray me. That's all I meant. But I am not certain of that. I trust them. Once in a while, that trust turns out to be misplaced. That's what I'm talking about, though. That's not certitude. Does that make sense?
Yes. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I'm still not sure what to do with it. No, I mean, what I'm saying is,
what I say is, be very careful what you tell them.
Yeah. But do we see a sense of, but you're also asking us, or we're also meant to put trust in a God that trust may not be.
That's correct. That was my point.
Okay. And so then where does the gospel in terms of God's reconciling of us to him fit into that, in your mind?
Well, as long as that kind of formula is not made a universal absolute mantra, it tells the truth. But it's not the whole truth. So I want to try to avoid absolutizing slogans that cover over stuff. That's what my concern about it is. So I think it is a promise of the gospel that God's reconciling love. But we have plenty of evidence that God's holiness or God's self-regard or God's preoccupation elsewhere kind of make that a little bit to be dealt with. I just think trust never admits of closing the book. Now, there are people that arrive at that kind of trust in their marriage. But there's a lot of people that think they have and didn't. That is, trust is a relational phenomenon. And relationships are thick. Certitudes are thin. And I guess my advocacy is the church's business is that kind of thickness, and you cannot finally live by thinness of that kind. That's what I think. One other comment? Yeah, you got a microphone? Oh, he's coming. Then we'll move on. Good.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I heard you. That it's okay for our God to, at some time in her life, to have been the perpetrator of violence against the creation.
Well, I don't think it's for me to say it's okay. I don't think God asked me. Well, if we say that God committed violence, and I don't know if you're both going to say that, then we have to deal with that. What I'm trying to resist is the easy conclusion that that didn't happen or God didn't do it. It's simply patriarchal projection. And I think that's too easy because eventually it's Marcionite, and what we do is we pick out the parts we like and we say all the rest is projection. And I just think we're not permitted to do that. So if God did it, it's not okay. One of the texts to which I would appeal is in Exodus 32 at the golden calf thing. God is ready to wipe them out. And Moses intervenes. Moses says, you are a better God than that. Now shape up. So I wrote a little article about God's violence in the book of Joshua, saying, why didn't Joshua speak up? And of course the answer is he was caught up in the ideology. Well, I don't think it's okay. The question is it a theological datum for which we have to take some attentive responsibility, or can we just push it aside?
So we'll keep fighting about it.
Yes.
Yes, I'm for that. I'm for that.
I believe that fidelity is an endless, sometimes adversarial negotiation. And
violence, and I don't mean anger.
Understand.
I mean, take you out, take away your life.
Yep.
If that's included in our God, there's going to be a problem with fidelity.
That's correct. There is.
I don't know if
I think there is.
Yes. Okay.
There are lines from Alan Paton that I like to quote, and this may not be useful. Alan Paton was the South African who wrote Cry of the Beloved Country, and for his son's confirmation, he wrote a long poem. It was published in Christian Century a while ago. And he says, among other things, to his son, do not think that God is wiser than Plato, And do not think that God is more artistic than Beethoven. God is not wiser than Plato. God is not more artistic than Beethoven. He is their God. So, I don't know what Alan Paton meant, but I don't think out of that we have criteria to which we can comfortably hold God. So I think we have to argue, we have to dispute, we have to get in God's face. So intercession means to intercede. God damn it. That's why I hate bidding prayers. Okay, we'll continue that. Okay. Yeah, we'll make this a last comment. Is that all right? Do you live with that?
In my parish, I'm serving as a co-mentor of an EFM group, Education for Ministry, and the over and over again, I love the wrestling that happens there, and over again, I think what is happening for those who are in that pre-critical mode and are moving into seeing that there's more to the Bible is that they're really threatened by the idea. In what you're saying is it's threatening in the sense that threatens our idea of God's perfection and God's purity, that God could be in error and do violence when that just doesn't accord with our picture of God. So I
Is that a question or?
It's a comment, but it's
Yeah.
how,
See,
how do you
think,
respond to that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a
Yeah.
because it makes people feel unsafe,
of course it does.
right? And so
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is that the Jewish articulation of God to which we are heirs, which is this maddening interactive phenomenon, is in profound tension with Greek philosophical ideas of perfection. And in the 2nd and 3rd centuries, those Greek categories largely came to predominate in the church. And many of the great saints along the way knew better than that, but it didn't stop the main flow. In our time, I believe that pastorally it is the CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education movement, that has rubbed our faces in that phenomenon. I think there are an awful lot of silly things done in the name of CPE stuff, so that's not a blank check. But it did summon us to look at the relationality of our faith that simply doesn't accommodate those categories. And the text, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, I think probably that is a rendering of a Hebrew word that means be about one thing. Don't have a divided mind about things. That's not the same as perfect. So, you know, it's a struggle for us all. Yeah. Well,